I wonder if you could share a couple of thoughts about the multi-generational workforce. A lot of companies are seeing this transition as us baby boomers, they'll pull the power out of our cold, dead hands eventually, I'm sure. But we're beginning to make a transition. I'm very bullish on the next generation. We've got some young people at our company that are they're just so bright. They continue to amaze me. They make me look good. And I have 2 teenage sons. I'm very bullish on them and some nephews and nieces. A lot of people say, oh, those kids today. I say those kids today, look out for them because I think they're going to be something special. But the multi-generational workforce does have it's some weird and sometimes challenging dynamics. And I wonder if each of you could share a thought or two about managing that and what the impact is on organizations.
Well, I don't know if the article is out or not, but I wrote an article called The DNA of the Multi-Generational Workforce for the BizTimes. This is the first time in the history of our work organization that we have 4 generations at work. We have the traditionalists who were very loyal to the company. We have the baby boomers who they lived to work because the commitment was about advancement. The commitment was about generating a better lifestyle than what they lived and making more money. We have Generation X, and they work to live, and it's a very different work ethic. And then we have the Generation Y, and they're about, what is their philosophy? It would be more customized work. They want to work their way. This is nothing more than another morphing of diversity initiative. That's all it is. And I think we have to be mindful as leaders that we don't judge, that we suspend our judgments because judgment closes our heart. And when it closes our heart, it closes our capacity to be curious and to learn. So I would ask you, as we look at these new generations, exactly to your point, Steve, what value do they bring? What can they teach us? I'm going to tell you that the millennials, Generation Y, are some of the best teachers I have found. They are so patient with us baby boomers in learning technology. Oh my gosh, they're so incredibly patient. They understand we don't get it and they forgive us anyways because their parents didn't get it. Yeah, I'm one of those. I have a millennial who's 11. I can't tell you how many times she says, Mom, that isn't how you do it. Good, teach me how to do it right, Cherise. So I would ask you to be curious in your organizations. It goes back to what I said before, though. Please hire right. Understand what your values are as a corporation and hire those values, because values, unfortunately, are not easily trainable.
Steve? I talked about it earlier, but I managed, again, a field force of some very young people. And one of the ways I pick up on this is we have a weekly conference call Monday mornings at 10:30. Most convenient time, East Coast is obviously 11:30, West Coast 8:30. But I listen to their pre-conference call, the real discussion, and they talk about things like music, and they'll mention like Keisha or, you name it. As I was telling my wife last week, we watched Saturday Night Live, and the funny part is, do we actually even know who the musical guest is? And that's what I get from these people. They're talking about musical artists I have no idea. And I listen to the radio. I do a lot of things with music, and I don't even know this. So it's that connection that you have to kind of work to build with your younger staff, your different generations. I think my youngest person is 21 or 22, and my oldest is probably 35. I also have 2 daughters that are in their 20s. One is works in public relations in Chicago. The other one's finishing her senior year out in New York in sports management. And they kind of give me that generational information that I'm lacking. I pick it up at UWM as well. You really have to work to connect with different generations. It's not an easy thing sometimes. I'm 52, and in many ways, when I went back to school, a lot of the education stuff has already passed me by. There's different ways of approaching classwork. There's a lot of different dynamics in college now, and I'm struggling. You learn how to get back into that. You learn to accept opinions that are completely radically different than the people that I hang out with on a weekly basis. 50-year-olds versus 20-year-olds. year olds, and it's a very exciting time. They bring an awareness of social media and how that's kind of working towards the business environment that none of the people, very few people that are my age have to that depth. Understanding the roles of things like Facebook and all the different social media out there. They understand that that has a business role as well. One of my wife's relatives runs a public relations company in Green Bay, and she really is tapped into that market, that segment where you can use those to get the word out on your clients' information. So the biggest thing that I learned from working with younger people across all those generations is that just they bring an awareness of things that I don't have in my makeup, things that I've kind of gotten away from. They bring that back to me, and because of that, it increases my ability to react quickly and to work well in the workplace.
Spoken like a man with a highly developed amygdala.
You don't even know how to say it.
Ayiesha?
As I've seen in my current organization, Easter Seal Southeast Wisconsin, our workforce is changing dramatically. I've only been there for about 3.5 years, and our leadership team in itself has, I think we have, as Christine mentioned, all 4 generations in our leadership team alone. So it's critical that we find a way to work together as a leadership team. Another plug for Marquette, I'm sorry. When I was at Marquette, my capstone project actually included information on multi-generational workforce. I focused actually specifically on Generation Xers versus, and I don't mean versus in a negative way, but versus the baby boomers, and how those generations can best work together specifically in nonprofit organizations. And I outlined, after looking at all my research and what's going on across the country and across sectors, as a matter of fact, my recommendations were recommendations for the baby boomers, for the Gen Xers, as well as for the organizations that they work for. As far as Gen Xers, they need to seek out the baby boomers. Don't be afraid of the baby boomers, because they're in your parents' generation, but seek them out for their knowledge, for their skill, for their experience. For the baby boomers, don't be threatened by the Gen Xers. Welcome them, share your knowledge with them. You have knowledge, you have experience that needs to be passed along. As for the organizations, be it nonprofit or business, recognize that there are differences in your workforce, in the generations within your workforce. Don't ignore the generations. Acknowledge them. Recognize that there are differences, and that's okay. But emphasize those similarities and help encourage the two to work together for the betterment of the organization. So I think it can be done. My organization has begun to do that, and I think that all starts with dialogue. We don't want this generation here, this generation there. We want to bring everyone together and emphasize those similarities and figure out how we can work best together for the missions or the goals of our organizations.
John?
Well, my business, we're a service business. We don't sell a product, so all we have is people. And so it's obviously very important to be able to understand and motivate the different generations. And certainly there's no doubt that the values of particularly the millennials are quite a bit different than the baby boomers, such as myself. It's kind of interesting. You give a baby boomer anything with status, and that just motivates them like crazy. A title, a club membership, exclusive access to something, and it doesn't work with the Gen Y people. So, which that's probably a good thing. So, I do worry that some of the younger people now, with this current economic environment, that we're losing some of that. I know I have a 26-year-old daughter and a 24-year-old son, 18-year-old, and I know how difficult it is for young people starting out today. And there's a lot of people that are out of work, and you definitely need that younger influence in any organization constantly coming up. So that's a concern I have. I also don't think I get a lot of eye rolling with the boomers when we talk about the X's and the millennials, but you really don't have any choice but to get on board with the new generations. I remember my dad telling me a story. He was a very successful executive, but at some time the younger guys wanted to move and do something, and he had to step aside And that's the way the world works. And so you really don't have a choice. You have to understand and let the different generations do their own thing.